Hey, what's up guys, welcome back to the channel. And on today's video, I just want to go over a couple of the updates that COROS has just released for their line of watches. Now, if you don't already use a COROS watch, you probably know COROS mostly for their battery life. The battery life of the COROS watches are substantially better than most every other watch out there on the market. However, what you might not also know is that COROS pushes out updates to all their watches all the time. I'm serious, it is like a monthly event. Maybe not exactly every month. It is definitely more often than any of the other GPS watchmakers that you may be familiar with. So about a week ago, COROS pushed out a fairly big update, and I just wanted to go over a few of those things in case you have a COROS watch or in case you're thinking about getting one. Right now I'm using the Pace 2 as kind of like my daily driver, and this is the least expensive COROS watch. And even though I do have several running watches that I could choose from, I do choose to run with a Pace 2 more often than not, just because it's super small and it really gives me what I'm looking for. And this update has made it even more valuable. We're going to start off with the virtual run profile, and this has enabled COROS watches to be used with virtual running programs. Maybe you've heard of Zwift. So now you can just link your COROS watch to Zwift and you can run, and it's going to pick up all the metrics. And this is pretty valuable because a lot of the times people are using Zwift and they're connecting it to their treadmills, but treadmills are notoriously inaccurate. There's just too much going on, too many moving parts for all treadmills to be calibrated correctly all the time. So this actually brings up a great question that I want to know from you guys that use a virtual training program like Zwift. How do you record your runs on Zwift? Do you use your smart treadmill? Do you use the watch and the internal gyroscope and all the magic that's going on inside? Or do you use a foot pod connected to your watch and then connected to the Zwift app? Let me know in the comments. Next up, COROS has added an adjusted pace data field. And ultimately, the adjusted pace data field is showing you what your pace would be if you were running on a flat surface. So obviously this is going to be different if you're running uphill or you're running downhill. If you're running uphill, your adjusted pace is going to be a lot faster than your actual pace. And if you're running downhill, it's likely your adjusted pace is going to be a little slower, because if it was flatter, you wouldn't be running as quick. Now, you may have seen this before if you use Strava. Give this video a thumbs up if you use Strava. So on Strava, you're probably familiar with seeing the gap, the grade adjusted pace. And that does exactly the same thing. If you look at your screen now, you're gonna see a recent run that I did, and you can see my pace field, and then to the right of it is the gap, the grade adjusted pace. And you can see that the grade adjusted pace is just slightly faster than my actual pace, except on mile 7 where it's 1 second slower. So even though you have had this data in the past on Strava, you haven't had it on your wrist. And this is fantastic because it allows you to measure the effort that you're putting out while you're actually putting it out. Before, you would have to upload the data to Strava, and then you'd look at it and you'd be like, oh yeah, look at this. Strava's telling me that I was running a lot faster than I actually was because it's taken into account the hills. Now you can add this data field to your COROS watch and you can measure the effort that you're putting in appropriately in real time. The adjusted pace data field is a real gem. Next up, COROS has included an open water or pool swimming temperature, which is pretty handy because when you are in the pool, you're banging out those reps, you're going to want to know the temperature of the water that you're swimming in, because that is really going to affect how you swim, as well as just giving another data point to track, which us data nerds, we can really appreciate. It does have practical applications. In the summertime, when the pool water really heats up because the sun's beating down on it, your performance really suffers. Now, when that water is like at the perfect temperature, don't ask me what that is. I really don't swim anymore, but I do remember what it was like. I do remember when that water is like in that Goldilocks zone, you can bang out those laps and it feels like you could swim forever. And COROS has pushed this out to the Vertex 1 and 2, the Apex 1 and 2, and the Pace 2. And this is about the only real world use for having a thermometer on your wrist, because you really can't tell the air temperature with a thermometer on your wrist because your body is always going to be heating it up. It's always going to be more warm than the air actually is. But that all changes in the water. You're going to get an accurate water temperature reading. And thanks to this update, you now can. COROS has now added Korean and Russian to their watches. So if you speak either Korean or Russian and you've been struggling to have your watch in another language because your language wasn't supported, wait is over, my friends. Korean and Russian language are now supported. COROS has now made connection to your GoPro even easier. It's more of a bug fix than an update because you could always connect your GoPro to your COROS watch. However, when you paired it, it was paired and you can go ahead and take care of business and you can activate the camera on your watch. But when you turned off the camera, it broke the connection and the watch wouldn't remember it. Now with this update, it's kind of made it how it should have always been. Your watch will remember the connection to the camera, which actually makes it about 1,000,000 times more useful. Again, falling more into the bug fixes than the updates are the optimized workout support. Now, the workouts on COROS, they are very similar to what you see on Polar, Garmin, or any of the other brands that you can create workouts, upload them to the watch, and then execute them out on the road. Now, in my opinion, COROS seems to be about the easiest one to use. It is very user-friendly, and they've just made it even more easier by making the warm-up, the run, the rest, and the cool down independent from each other. So let's say you're doing an interval and then you have a rest, where you're going to set that rest at a certain intensity level. That could be based on heart rate, could be based on pace, could be based on cadence. Like, you can seriously tweak it whatever way you want to measure your run. But now when it comes to the next interval, it's going to remember what you chose for that first rest period. So you're not going to have to enter how you want to measure each rest period. Does that make sense? I feel like that's a little clunky way of explaining it. But if you've already used the COROS workout creation tool on the app, you probably know what I'm talking about. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, then you've got nothing to worry about, because when you go to use it, it's going to be super easy to use. I still think that came out a little clunky. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about that particular update. The next, and probably my favorite update to the COROS watches, is native integration of the core temperature sensor. And guys, don't worry, I'm going to do a full video actually talking about how this works, but we can see it's a tiny little thing. And basically this core temperature sensor pairs to your watch by Bluetooth Smart, and then you wear it on your chest strap. They say it should be right underneath your arm, and basically it uses its sensors and all kinds of mathematical wizardry to get your skin temperature and your internal body temperature. And because the sensor is linked to the watch, you can then add a data field, and you can choose between your core temperature in real time, your max core temperature, your minimum core temperature, or your average core temperature. I want to see how, when I'm running an interval, my body temperature increases. Well, basically because body temperature is a fairly slow moving metric. It's not like heart rate, it's certainly not like power, which moves instantaneously. I want to see the difference between my body temperature when I start running and then after a mile or so. And I like this level of data integration. It's just another metric that I can look at all my personal stats. Now I get it, if you're not a data nerd, this might be nothing to you, but I'm looking forward to testing this core temperature sensor, especially in the Florida heat, and see how my body temperature relates to my power output, relates to my performance. It's going to be a fun metric to get into. You can see now I'm wearing a hoodie, got my hood on in the house. It's very difficult when I'm dressed like this to test being overheated, but it's coming. And finally, COROS has added 3D mapping to their maps on their app. So this is a pretty nifty thing, especially if you live in somewhere cool like the mountains, because you get to pull it down to ground level, and then you can see your course kind of winding throughout the mountains. And COROS makes good use of this in their media release. Now for me, it's slightly less cool, although I appreciate it being there, because I live in a flat area. When I pull it down to 3D, nothing really changes. Now you can see on your screen right now, when I open up the COROS mapping, the default map doesn't have the option to go to 3D. So what you're going to do is press on this little button on the right hand side of your screen that has the kind of the stacked papers, and we're going to switch it to the next one over, which is satellite. Now we can see it says 2D on the right hand side of the screen. If we select that to 3D, it turns into a 3D map. Then we can just go ahead and zoom in, and we can move it all around. And as you can see, this is a very flat area that I'm running in, and there's really no variation in the elevation. But if there was, it would look fantastic on this map. Well guys, thanks for staying all the way to the end of the video. If you like updating all the tech that you have, just give this video a thumbs up. And of course, if you're not subscribed, consider doing so right now. You really are going to want to subscribe, because pretty soon I'm going to be talking about this core temperature sensor. And I realize that sounds a lot more exciting to me than most of you. Anyway, be kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.